Hi all. These are generally conversations between adults after the children have left the table. The language can be spicy and the subjects can get saucy. So if you're ready, this is the Southern Fork. Unscripted kitchen chats and also studio chats with some of the most interesting voices in the culinary South. I'm Stephanie Burt, a food and beverage writer based in Charleston, South Carolina, who travels with her fork to write for a variety of publications, from magazines you might have on your coffee table to the website you love to visit for your favorite recipes. And I'm inviting you to come behind the scenes with me to get to know the people who make this Southern culinary landscape so special. I'm always hungry for the next bite, thirsty for that next sip, and ready for the next conversation. Let's dig in. The Southern Fork is honored to be presented again this year by Townsend Automotive in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Celebrating 50 years of service in Tuscaloosa and West Alabama, the Townsend family of dealerships has been a locally owned company built on service and connection with its customers. At Townsend Honda, with new cars in short supply, they've purchased more than 200 quality pre-owned vehicles. And every one of them goes through a 118-point inspection before it's offered for sale to you. Most of those vehicles are either Honda Certified Pre-Owned or Townsend Certified Pre-Owned, and the dealership also has a fully staffed parts and service department to assist you beyond the purchase day throughout the life of your vehicle. That includes Saturday service, which is available until 1 p.m., even during football season. Visit townsendhonda.com for current inventory, or if you're in West Alabama, stop in. Townsend Honda salutes local entrepreneurs, from restaurateurs to podcasters, and they welcome you to be part of a community that does the same. As we move into the season of cheer, many of us will dip our toes into the grand American cocktail tradition, if only to make a cosmopolitan or hot toddy for a holiday gathering. Cocktails are uniquely American, asserts Abigail Gullo of Loa in New Orleans, Louisiana. She revels in their chemistry, caretaking, and craft traditions, and she bases her work on many of the classics, updating them with seasonal ingredients, fresh herbs, and unique spirits. She's been recognized as Bartender of the Year by Eater New Orleans and Tales of the Cocktail, and she's also concocted libations on The Today Show and The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. At Loa, she's the mistress of mischief, whose immense knowledge about bartending and the respect for the history of it isn't necessarily just a thing of reverence, but a template for building a community space that welcomes all who gather. Welcome to the Southern Fork, Abigail.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so happy to sit with you. You look absolutely radiant today.
Oh, thank you, sweetheart.
So
I'm glowing because I was doing some manual labor.
So I enjoyed a lovely cocktail last evening at Loa, and I've heard so much about you through the years, and this is our first time interacting was last evening, and it just felt like, oh, I know her.
Yeah.
Well, I get it. I know this. Yeah. And it's just been, that's something that you and I spoke about briefly last night, that there is this feeling of community, right, within Absolutely. Your business. Not just behind the bar, but definitely in food and beverage. And you mentioned that the pandemic had deepened that, right?
I feel like it has. I feel like when the pandemic happened and our whole industry was thrown this horrific loop, and then coming out of it and seeing instead of like the world unite behind us as essential workers who deserve better wages and better tips, instead we are sometimes even treated worse than we were before. So I think that's made us even stronger as a community, those who've kind of stayed with it to say, no, this is a real passion, but also this is a real craft. And I should be treated as such, and we should be treated as such. And we're looking out for each other so that we're not taken advantage of as much anymore. And we're looking to strengthen our industry and really have a greater impact on our community and show the world we are an essential part of the community.
That idea of a craft, I think, I'm a kid of Gen X, and I don't think I can say the word kid anymore.
Oh,
if
sure.
You're Gen X, but
Gen Xers, that's the thing. We're kids forever. We're forever logically kids. No, we are forever children.
Yeah.
The smallest of generations.
But that idea, we were around before the craft cocktail movement, before the suspenders and the handlebars and all that stuff. And that wave has happened, and there's been a second and a third wave. And so now it's just this established thing. And there is this idea of alchemy, of apothecary, of caretaking, almost medicine. There's a medicinal kind of thing that still lingers around the edges of bartending.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. In fact, in Australia, people who work in hospitality are considered emotional. It's an emotionally invested job just as much as like nursing, say. So they are actually given a higher wage because they're considered to do a great deal of emotional labor as well as physical labor, because we take care of the needs of the community, right? People come to us for sustenance. People come to us for interaction, for community interaction. And so we take on a lot of that responsibility. Going back to the pandemic, not only did we actually became like policing. We were telling people they had to put on their masks. We were checking vaccination cards. Like, we took on this role in society that normally you don't associate with, your server and your hostess is also your, protecting your safety.
Right.
And the safety of your community. I think that's kind of really solidified in our minds that, yes, we're almost like chemists. And, if modern medicine is only
I
about
couldn't find the word
old.
chemist.
Yeah.
I was really working for that.
We do mix together. Pharmacists were considered early bartenders.
Right.
The trade was very much the same. And when Prohibition hit and a great deal of bartenders moved because, your livelihood is gone, so you move to Europe or Cuba or Mexico to continue your craft, those that stayed kind of became pharmacists and worked on soft drinks. And that's why, I don't know if you remember from our youth, you would sometimes find pharmacies that still had soda shops in them.
Yeah,
and that's the remnants of the bartenders for post-Prohibition.
And she is also a just great lover of this kind of history, this cocktail
love
history.
It. I love the history that we're part of. In America, we forget about it because we have Prohibition as this huge break. But the craft of cocktails is uniquely American, like jazz. So I'm super proud of it as an American. We have this great history, and we've created this community around cocktails that other countries, they have that great third place. You have the beer houses of Germany. You have the taverns of England. You have the cafes of Paris.
And tapas, Spain.
Yeah, tapas in Spain. The tea houses in Japan. Well, in America, we have cocktail houses. That really is our unique third place.
I love that idea, and I'm going to steal it. You will see it in print, and you'll be like, wait, girl, I said that. So you do have this vibe of a mistress of mischief, which I mentioned in the intro. And there is also this caretaking thing. When you're building a cocktail menu, can you talk about the edges and how you creatively decide? I talk a lot about fences on the show, creative fences, how you decide what works within that beautiful picket fence of a menu.
Well, it's absolutely one of my visions is that there's something for everybody on my menu. If you like something refreshing, if you like something sour, if you like something more spirit driven, I have something for everybody. I don't necessarily think in terms of spirits because, a tequila drink can be boozy, or a tequila drink can be sour, or a tequila drink can be refreshing.
Right.
So rather than think of the spirits, I have a little bit more flexibility with that to see what plays best in the cocktail. But I like to think of more like the emotional journey that you're going on. Is this drink going to pep you up? Is this drink going to settle you in? Is this drink going to take you into dinner? Is this drink an after dinner treat? So I try to make sure that it's very well rounded, and it is I use the dreaded word approachable, which sometimes people have weird feelings about, but I believe I want it to be approachable and yet interesting, something new, but something rooted in classics and something that will take care of you. Yeah.
And last night on All Saints Day, I had a Corpse Reviver number 2, which is a classic and one of my favorite cocktails.
I didn't know that when I made it. It was one of your favorites. I hope I did okay.
Well, that's okay. I had a love affair with absinthe at some point, so the rinse was how I got to see that. But that was a reviver, right? Talk a little bit about that cocktail. You told me about it last night, but I'd love for you to repeat it.
Yeah, in the 1800s, there was a whole category of drinks called corpse revivers that were meant to be morning drinks or something to revive your corpse the morning after.
It's extremely boozy for a morning drink.
Well, when you've imbibed too much, sometimes it's a little bit of the hair of the dog.
Yeah.
It's so funny. The Corpse Reviver number 1 is much, much stronger.
Right.
It's the sweet vermouth Calvados and cognac drink. So the
I
number 2
avoided
is
that one. I'm a number 2 girl.
Yeah, that's the one that has stood the test of time. And I think it's just so refreshing and it actually feels quite modern. Like when I often introduce people to Corpse Revivers number 2s, if they like Cosmos, because they really are in the same family,
Right.
Yeah, it's a sour drink with triple sec, Cointreau, and a base spirit, and a little like herbaceous quality, a little bit of a bitter quality, and Cosmo has all of that too.
And I love the herb. I love the bitter.
Yeah.
And I chase that flavor a lot. But it's not the only flavor I like. And I wonder, was there an ingredient that really opened your eyes where you were just like, this is the coolest thing? Because you're so well known within the community. Is there something that's a signature? Like if you were behind door number 3 and you slid a cocktail out, somebody would be like, this is an Abigail drink.
Well, my first love and my first kind of interest in cocktails came with my grandfather drinking Manhattans.
Right.
But doing the research and realizing original Manhattan was probably made with rye and not bourbon. And rye in the 90s was really hard to find. So when I used to come down to New Orleans to visit, they had more ryes here than other places. They had Peychaud bitters. Of course, they had herb saint, so you can make Sazeracs. So I'd always bring that home and look for rye. So I loved like the spicy quality of rye. So I'd say rye would be a signature of a lot of drinks. My drinks often tell stories that are connected to my history and have some little piece of home or my family in it. So where I grew up, there was fields of wild climbing mountain thyme. So I often use fresh herbs, thyme, lavender, rosemary are 3 of my favorite herbs. I like to use either in infusions, a garnish, in a syrup. There's a lot of different ways to use that kind of little bit of herbal quality. And, I'd say that's pretty much my signature. I tend to also make, unexpected drinks with different spirits. So if it's a whiskey drink, maybe it's a sour whiskey drink. If it's a Scotch drink, it's a super refreshing Scotch drink with like apple cider,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I love that kind of cocktail. I'm dying right now. I'm just like,
I knew I should have brought up a cocktail.
I know. And I should say, yes, we are sitting inside the International House Hotel in New Orleans, Louisiana, and it's my kind of hotel because it's a boutique hotel and it's filled with art. There's a Banksy, y'all, and I'm just whatever.
It's one of the first boutique hotels in New Orleans, and that's why Loa is like the first kind of craft cocktail bar in New Orleans as well. We opened up 25 years ago.
Wow. Well, I wanted to circle back with that idea of the hotel bar, and we are really in like a great era for the hotel bar.
Yes.
And Loa was now, I didn't even really register that it was 25 years old, but Loa was really on that edge of that because hotel bars are wonderful things. It's an oasis in the desert. It's that comfort stop. I mean, after traveling is lovely, and I love that I can get on a plane and be here, but it's stressful.
Yeah.
And it's dirty, even though we live in a pretty clean society and you want to chill for a minute. The hotel bar gets it done. But it's not been the place of creativity in this era until recently. But going back, you have a history of your grandfather bartending at the Waldorf Astoria, right?
Yes,
in
the
New
old
York
one.
City.
The old one that was on 34th and 5th Avenue, which is where the Empire State Building stands now. But before they built the Empire State, there was this gorgeous Gothic Waldorf Astoria hotel, and that is where my
great-grandfather, sorry.
Now it's okay. He was a barman, and he met my great-grandmother, who was a maid in that hotel. And she had just immigrated from Ireland, and he had immigrated from Montreal. So it's a real immigrant New York story. And, and my grandmother was raised, and my grandparents were raised in Hell's Kitchen. My grandmother's family worked for the railroad, and my grandfather's family was in hospitality. And my grandfather was the first one to go to high school, Stuyvesant High School. And they, had 10 children. So we weren't a wealthy family, but we were full of love. And when you grow up in New York City, you can be poor and you live right next door to the rich people. So there's this very interesting kind of dichotomy in my family that if we were fancy, we dress to travel, we dress to go out to eat, even though it was very rare. And, the sign of, the perfect before dinner drink growing up was my grandfather's like, we have to have a Manhattan. So I was always kind of raised in this kind of classic culture, this New York culture of dining, but it was very rare and it was only for special occasions, because we weren't very wealthy.
And you were the only one he taught the art of the Manhattan, correct? From the family?
Yeah.
So you got the pass down.
I did. Well, he saw from an early age that I had an interest in kind of classic movies, and I watched all of the Thin Man movies, and all of famous films of their era were like what I kind of grew up watching. So he saw that in me and was like, well, I better teach you how to make a Manhattan, kid.
Oh, that's so cool. New Orleans is a drinking city. I would, and I think anybody who is breathing knows that. But to be distinctive here, you've really embraced New Orleans as a home, as a spiritual home.
I have.
As a place for your creativity to bloom and for you to experiment and try. And you have this great basis of this New York classic culture and this mix of vintage, and it provides this really timeless thing that happens, right? So what is it about New Orleans and you doing the specific work that you do here that really continues to feed you, to inspire you?
New Orleans and New York have a lot in common. They're great port cities that were kind of built by immigrants. More Sicilians came through the port of New Orleans than New York. So I feel very comforted here because they're very much my people. Right. And even the accent is the same.
It is. Yes, it is. I noticed that when I first visited 25 years ago, but I was just like, these people sound like they're from New York.
My podcast partner and I, we started doing the podcast because we would get drunk and we'd start getting excited talking to each other about cocktails. And her husband, who was Cajun, would say, y'all sound like you are from the same family. And I know you're not. Like, that's wild that you guys talk the same. And I'm like, yeah, well, we're both Port City mutts. That's how that happens. But yeah, I do feel like New Orleans is so unique. We were never an English colony, right? We were always French or Spanish. And then we were French again briefly before we were American. So there is this kind of timeless quality to New Orleans. And because of its physical location and how it wasn't allowed to expand with highways and suburbs like other American cities, because it's kind of limited by being in the middle of a swamp.
Once again, blowing my mind here. I'm stealing that. Stealing that too.
So it kind of, maintained its very much kind of 18th century characteristics.
Right.
So that kind of keeps it in its, we also have a saying here that I love called preservation through neglect. Like, we were neglected for quite a long time. And because of that, a lot of old stuff is just still around because nobody bothered to tear it down.
Right.
And now, as we get older, we realize how valuable this culture is and how valuable this history is, and how important it is to the American story. We have such a unique culture here that you can't find anywhere else.
Right.
And those of us that live here are fiercely protective of it. Sometimes it gets misinterpreted as not wanting to see change. And of course we want to see progress and we want to see things get better for the people that live here. But we also are very protective of the fragile and unique culture that has been allowed to exist here, because we've been pretty much left on our own.
Right. And as somebody who travels a lot through the work that I do, the flattening of a narrative like New Orleans, like I live in Charleston, and so that idea of commodification and selling it and then not protecting it in the way that I've been quoted as talking about this, but it flattens everything.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a transaction instead of a culture. Then it becomes, I want to see the real New Orleans.
Yes.
And we're in the real New Orleans.
You absolutely
right.
are. That's what I tell people. They're like, well, I don't want to go to the touristy spots. I'm like, well, I got to tell you something. The whole town is touristy. We're built on that. So all of us go to these places too.
Right, right. That's what's so cool about Loa, is that it is a hotel bar, but it is also a locals place.
Oh, we are uniquely New Orleans. We are New Orleans owned. We are New Orleans and I think this is like a trend that you see now in hotels. Hotels used to be like, no matter where you go, you get the same hotels. So you kind of feel like, okay, I always stay at blankety blank hotel, no matter where I am in the world. It smells the same. It looks the same. It's the same sheets. But I think now the way we travel has kind of changed, in that when people travel, they don't want to feel like they're in a sealed bubble. They want to feel like they're there where they traveled to.
Or at least certain people do.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of people we want to hang out with, right?
Yeah,
At the bar.
Yeah. So you want to really immerse yourself in the culture that you've come to visit.
Right.
So we're very, very proud to be a part of that. Loa is so much about what we call taste of place, right? And it's not just, of course, the French and the Spanish influence, but we go deeper into what really influences New Orleans culture. And that includes Sicily, Vietnam, Senegal, Haiti, the Philippines. All of these places are instrumental, and their people are instrumental in the flavors and the spirits of the culture here in New Orleans. So we really want people to get that taste of place here. And that physically comes from the cocktails. You are tasting spirits that were brought by people from all over the world who've made New Orleans their home.
And that's the way to experience it, in my opinion. So I would love to talk to you all day, but we both have to work. And this is really great work that I do and really great work that you do, but it can wear us down. It's a lot. You just were doing physical labor, and I was running in here and emailing. But what keeps you coming back? What's next? What's making you hungry?
It's funny. So I always wanted to be a mom. I come from this beautiful, wonderful family, and I was often the caretaker of my younger cousins and my younger siblings, and I couldn't wait to be a mom. And I was a school teacher, actually, for 15 years before I even got into the hospitality industry. And I think I made that transition because it became not possible for me to have a family of my own. And so finding this family and this community enabled me to feel like I became a caretaker and a mother again.
Right.
But I'm taking care of not only all my coworkers, I'm taking care of my owners. I'm also taking care of my guests, of course, every day. And I think what really is now driving me as I find myself suddenly an elder in this community.
Yeah, when did that happen?
Fast. Jeez. It's like, wait, what?
It's hard on people.
It's really hard. You know, I'm still talking about my glory days, listening to grunge. So
I was a swing dancer.
I was a swing dancer too.
Oh, good. That's Lindy Hop later.
Yeah. I'll never forget the day my friend said we were watching a whole bunch of kids dance to 60s music. And I was like, wow, it's cool that the kids are into this cool music now. And he's like, Abigail, you do realize that they're as far removed from this music as we were from swing? And I was like, wait, what? Yeah. No.
Yeah, it's true. It's like,
sorry, I went off on a tangent there.
No, but I think you answered both.
I am really excited to, you know, become a mentor and become an elder in this community, and to help, you know, really. We've made so many changes in the craft bartending community. We've opened the doors for so many people to have careers in, and we've totally changed the industry.
Right.
But now that we've kind of opened the doors, it's time to open them wider and let more people in. And the people on the margins kind of rise them up with us and have that rising tide raise all boats for everyone who works in the hospitality industry. So I'm very hopeful that we are taking this community in a great direction. And, you know, I always joke about how I want to be like the Julia Child / Rick Steves of the cocktail world. Like, yes. I want to make it accessible and fun for everybody, and also give the public a greater understanding to how important our role is in the community.
Well, you're just making good inroads with that today.
Thank you.
So I do think that you answered that second question already, which is what is one aspect of your job that really meshes with an aspect of your personality. And I think it is that caretaking aspect. So I'm going to just jump ahead and say, let's switch gears and give me a quick fire. What is keeping you up at night?
Oh, sometimes it's something as easy as I forgot to give that guy water. You know, I have these anxiety dreams. But yeah, I guess what does keep me up at night is making sure that my staff is well supported, that my community is well supported, and that everyone is finding success, but also finding health, finding ways to pull back and take care of themselves and have a full creative life.
Yeah, because this is a gauntlet industry, and there are definite pitfalls. There are people that, you know, fall into addiction. There are people that fall into overwork. There are people that fall into injury and just burnout. So,
yeah, I use the term, I tried to avoid use the term like I got burned out at a job, and try to rephrase it as I was overexploited.
Nice.
Because often that's what it is.
Because you give and give and give.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, that's a caretaking personality. And so many people in the industry have that.
I have to learn to, you know, sometimes I stay up at night figuring out how am I going to take care of myself.
That's great.
Yeah.
Then you have more to give. Yes, and this is about to be the Create the Love podcast with Mark Rose. Sorry. Okay. Well, I'm so excited to spend time with you, and I hope it is the first of many. But in the meantime, I have something that I reserve just for Southern Fork guests, and this is a magic picnic basket. So what I used to do was ask about that death row meal that we all talk about. If I had one more meal before the executioner came for me, and I don't believe in the death penalty.
No.
So
such a morbid question. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just one day stopped asking that, and I started thinking about what, instead of that, I want to bring you some things that bring you life. So I can time travel with this picnic basket. I can conscript anybody to make one more taste of something that you just love to try again. I can source for you, although your back bar is pretty epic. We'll probably go better than that. And I can cook a little bit. So I would love to bring you some of your favorite things. It doesn't have to be like a formal picnic or even a formal meal. Just what can I put in that basket for you?
Oh, well, I'm a big fan of sherry. So some nice dry manzanilla sherry, something I've never had before, something like en rama and super funky would be awesome.
Ooh.
And then to pair with that, of course, I want cheese. Fromage du moment. I want all of the cheese, all of the bread. I remember the meal I had in Paris at Joel Robuchon. And I just remember just focusing so much on that bread and the fresh butter that is protected in France, that AOP butter. That would just be a beautiful start with some sherry to go with that. And then I'd have to get kind of nostalgic and have my dad, the way he dresses a salad, he's an Italian, and it's just so simple, but he does everything so balanced and so perfectly. Like a salad from my dad would just be perfect. And my mom is the dessert lady. So I'd go to the end and I'd have to have rice pudding from my grandma and my mom's Boston cream pie that she makes me for my birthday. That is my favorite. Wow. She calls it Play-Doh cake because it's like the texture of Play-Doh. It's so thick. The cake is, right. She uses like 3 dozen eggs. It's amazing. It's so good.
It's like a baked flan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm a big appetizer and dessert girl. For those main courses, it's hard. I focus so much on the small plates. I guess that's the
well, it's your
Spanish,
picnic basket.
Yeah, so. It's going to be a lot of that. And it's going to be a lot of, and oysters.
Oh, yeah, oysters.
For sure. Oh, my God, my stomach is growling. You caught
Mine
that.
is too.
Oh my
Mine
goodness.
growls half the time on the show. Well, on that note of our stomachs growling, you can go to thesouthernfork.com. I'm going to have links there so you can make plans to visit Loa and Abigail behind the bar. If you like what you hear, there are more than 300. That's right. 300 episodes in the archives. I said a couple weeks ago, this is now an era of my life. So feel free to dive in there and find some more cocktail chats, some more New Orleans content. There's something in there for everyone, dare I say. This show is approachable, Abigail?
Yes, I think you can. I think it's very approachable.
Well, thank you so much for taking time on a busy day and for comforting me when I needed it after a long day on the road.
Absolutely, my dear. Let's go get a cocktail.
Let's do it now.
Yeah,
cheers.
Cheers, y'all.
Hello and welcome to Talking with My Mouth Full and a serendipitous turn of events. The mention that Abigail made of the Thin Man movies is really one of the great cocktail references of our age. The Thin Man movies featured a married couple named Nick and Nora, and Nick and Nora glasses became ubiquitous with classic martinis. They are also really great for Manhattans, which, of course, hold a very special place in Abigail's heart. And I actually wrote a piece for Saveur last year on the best martini glasses and included some information about Nick and Nora glasses and in general a little bit about how to choose glassware for your home bar. There are a lot of considerations beyond just a really cool classic film name, and they depend on how often you're going to use your glassware, what kind of cocktails you like to make at home, and of course, if you have a dishwasher or not. So I'm going to put a link to that article on Abigail's dedicated episode page. So if you want to check that out, please go to that page and you'll see the link at the bottom. But in the meantime, Nick and Nora glasses, they're my favorite for a martini or especially for a Gibson. Oh, I know martinis are so back, but for some of us, they really never left. So anyway, cheers to you and safe travels wherever you're headed this next week. And I will be right here next time you tune in.
You've been listening to The Southern Fork. I can't wait to bring you more culinary conversations, but in the meantime, I have one question. Are you gonna eat all that?